All right. So if you can just introduce yourself and um, tell us about your background and
Should I
where you
introduce
work.
myself as D Brazil or D May? Because my cards say D Brazil.
From the Brazil.
Okay.
This is May.
Okay. So do I start now?
Mm-hmm.
Hello, my name is D Brazil May, and I am self-employed after a 20-year career with Walmart and Sam's Club, and so now I work for myself, self-employed, as a supplier to Walmart.
So where'd you start at Walmart? What'd you do there? You could walk us through your career?
Okay, well, 20 years goes by real quick. So I just graduated my MBA and started in the merchandising division and then was recruited over to the information systems. And actually, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Retail Link, actually started that process at Walmart many, many years ago. It used to be called EDI and then it changed into Retail Link. After that, I moved into merchandising and I bought domestics for a while and also bought junior related separates, and that was a lot of fun. You know, my first traveling overseas and all the different countries, India, China. So that was really a lot of fun being in merchandising. After merchandising, I was pulled off to do a fast track program. So I actually got to go through every area of the company. So I went through finance, real estate. Real estate's a real interesting one because back in the day, Sam used to pick his new store locations by just flying over to see which way the traffic flowed. So I actually helped formulate a return on asset formula for the new building sites. I went through personnel, the marketing department, compensation, and then wound up in operations. So I was the first person in the company to move directly from merchandising into operations, because typically the career path for operations is in the stores, is you start in the stores and you work your way up to become a district manager. So I went directly from merchandising into a district manager role and had responsibility for the expansion of the California market when we were just starting to move out there. And I had responsibility for 2,500 associates, and that was a super fun job. I love that job. After that, I went to, talking to the executives on what my career path should be. That's when international was kind of getting a lot of play and a lot of growth. So I needed to do an international stint. So I did that and moved to Germany. And I was in Germany for 3 years. So in Germany, I did a variety of things. For example, started at the private label program, one being Olroy. We've all heard of that. But one of the interesting things about that is when Olroy was started in the States, nobody even thought about international, so it was not even protected anywhere except for the United States. So just little things like that you learn along the way. We also, when we bought Wertkauf, there were no planograms or any space allocation based on sales and profitability per linear meter. So I worked on that, and we came up with a lot of the modulars that you would see in a Walmart today, so the associates would know where to put things, and then you could also start measuring the productivity of the space allocation in stores. And so I did that for my first year. And my second year and a half, 2 years, I was over Heim Textilien, which is domestics. So we did all the sheets and towels and everything in the domestics department, and that was a lot of fun too. A lot of great associates over there, and I wouldn't trade my international experience for the world. Also, during that time, I had 2 children. I got pregnant with my first child when we were in California, Blair, and then my second one right when I'd moved back, or when I was moved back. Actually, I was pregnant with the second one, and we moved to Germany when my oldest Blair was 19 months old, and my youngest was 8 weeks old. So she was pretty much a German baby, and came back speaking English with a German accent or speaking something that we none of us understood, but that was a lot of fun. And so when I came back, I headed up the Walmart Connection Centers, which is the during the repatriation process, and started the Walmart cell phone areas. And we started from zero, and now it's over a multi-billion-dollar business. And boy, I wish I had commission on that program. So after I did that for a while and that got rolling, I was pulled into jewelry. So I was vice president. I became an officer in the company and introduced the Keepsake Diamond program, which you may or may not have heard of, but it was pretty upscale for Walmart. That was extremely successful. So then I was asked to go to Sam's Club and help their jewelry and luxury goods area. So I did that for 5 years, and that was sums up 20 years. It goes that fast.
Right. So, how did you get started doing what you're doing now?
Well, after 20 years with Walmart, obviously you have a lot of great experience, and there's so many suppliers out there that may have great product, but they don't know how to get it into Walmart, or some suppliers that have good product, it's been there for years, but they don't have a strategic plan on how to expand it, grow it, and maneuver to make sure it's there forever, or try to be. So, you take a lot of that experience that you have for granted, but it's invaluable to the supplier community.
Okay. So, I guess, who were some of your first clients? Who all have you represented? Can you kind of give us a rundown on that?
Well, right when I left, and it seems like a lot of people do this, after you leave the company, you migrate towards the areas that you were last in. So I spent the first couple of years helping some jewelry suppliers, and also since was familiar with the importing program and saw some voids, also developed some product and direct imported some jewelry boxes, for example. So that took probably the first couple of years, and then I started branching out and getting into different areas. So one thing that I found is that you really can't tie yourself into one area. What's important for longevity and success over a long period of time in the consulting/brokering business is that you need to diversify and understand areas all over the store, not just pigeonhole yourself in one.
Right. So, who do you, right now, who are you representing?
Oh, I've got several clients. One, J&J Snack Food. They're about $1 billion company, and they primarily sell food service. So they've got bakeries. They do pretzels, cookies, primarily. A lot of frozen. So they are Mr. Pretzel. They're the largest pretzel manufacturer in the world, I would say, unless there's some secret place in Germany, because they make a lot of them over there too. But so that's one. I also represent a plastics company, which is ABM Canada, but they are just now opening some facilities here in the United States to manufacture. But their flagship headquarters is over in Italy, and they happen to be the largest manufacturer for IKEA in plastics. So they're a really fun, great client, and they bring some exciting new things into the plastic world, like decorated, or it looks like it's intermold labeling is what it's called, but it just takes plain old plastics and makes them fun and exciting. I also worked with furniture company, Friul and Tagli, which is also, they happen to be the largest furniture manufacturer for IKEA, so we were trying to bring them into Walmart. I've worked with them for about 3 years, but we have yet to succeed in getting them in, so that's just an example of how long sometimes it takes to get programs in, and it depends on the buyer, the timing, and all of that, but you just have to be persistent if you really believe in who you're working with. I've got several others that Black Hive Corporation, which happens to be located in Fayetteville, Arkansas. They are a major importer and trader of food, and they are also a huge supplier for the food service industry. But I'm working with them to get them into Sam's Club and Walmart because, for example, they own bean farms in North Dakota, all the way from seed to finished product, and they actually sell a lot of their beans dried and canned to the people that sell to Walmart. So it's a way to go direct and save Walmart money, and then also help them grow. And they also have a baby food company, Oh Baby Baby Food, which is organic, non-GMO, and U.S. farm sourced. So that's also a lot of the new buzzwords and things that moms are looking for. A lot of people are being more health conscious, so that's also an exciting line that I have.
Okay, so what's your favorite part of doing the brokerage and consulting work?
Probably that I get to work in my yoga clothes and don't have to work on my own schedule, even though a lot of people think, oh, that sounds so great. But for example, right now it's a Sunday night. I've already spent 3 hours working on reports, pulling things together, so I'm ready for tomorrow. I've got a lot of business reviews coming up this week. So, working for someone, you can kind of punch in and punch out, so to speak, unless you're at higher levels at Walmart. But when you work for yourself, it's you, yourself, and I. So it's either you don't have anybody to fall back on. So you could work literally yourself to death, or there's some weeks that you may work 5 hours a day and go do yoga and have lunch with your friends. But that's what I like about it, is the flexibility.
So, what do you hate about your job?
Well, I don't really hate anything about it, but the things that are negative or things that you need to be very well aware of when you're going into business for yourself is Uncle Sam likes to take most of your money. So you need to make sure that you're planning for the tax hit, and you have to file your own taxes, insurance, all those things that are typically provided by the company that you're working for. All of a sudden it's your own responsibility, and if commissions or the income is not what you expect it to be, it makes it difficult if you're doing this instead of like this with a steady income working for someone else.
Okay, so when you're in the process of getting a product into Walmart or brokerage and any type of sales deal, is this all on your own? Do you have help? How does that work?
Typically 90% of the time it is on my own, but there are situations, and this is very important for everyone, whether you're in school or just starting out or in a company or working for yourself, is networking and understanding what your access to resource is. If there is someone that I know that I trust that can help me maneuver into being more visible to a buyer or helping me get an appointment or whatever the case may be, then I split, commissions or whatever, however much input they're giving me, I will compensate them for their time and effort.
Do you have an example of that you could share?
Yes. For example, I had this new supplier, which happens to be a luggage producer for Sam's and Walmart, and they were wanting to get into another area and expand their business. So I've got a really good friend that's very close to the people in the stationery department. So we're working on expanding their line into pencil pouches, lunch kits, and things like that. So it expands their business and helps them grow. And that's one great thing about suppliers, and that's one thing that they need to do is, if you're pigeonholed into one spot, it really puts you at a lot more risk. So the more the suppliers can expand and develop into other areas so that they're more protected. More protected meaning with a buyer change, a buyer may come in and have a favorite supplier that they worked with in another area, or they're just in a really bad mood all the time and just want to take the top 3 suppliers and cut everyone else out, or whatever the case may be. So if I need help getting suppliers into additional areas to help expand the business, yes, I definitely call on any resource that I need.
Okay. So how are you compensated with your job now? I know you've got a couple different pay structures. You could walk us through those.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of different ways. For example, one company that I work for that I did not mention is Clearwater Paper, and they are a huge company for private label paper towels, toilet paper, tissue, napkins. So I do analytical work for them. So I get a set amount every month. So that's consistent. The same thing with Black Hive right now. But I also have a commission structure. So once we start growing the business, then there's a lot of upside there. So it's just minimum. So it's very important, unless you have zero responsibilities and you still live with your parents, that you could go straight commission, but that is so risky. So it's important to have some stability there, and then also have some upside with commission as well.
Okay. So most of the companies you represent have more of a salary with a commission added on top, kind of like a combination.
It's a combination. There are several that for example, the furniture company I worked for 3 years,
Right.
and I've not made a dime. But I'm a strong believer in that company because they have so much to offer, and I know that it's going to work out at some point. So I will stick with them. So there's a couple like that I always kind of have on the back burner that it just takes more time. And there are some that I'm working for commission only, but I make pretty decent green. For example, J&J Snack Foods, we have some programs in there, and we're pitching 2 more this coming week that have a lot of upside for commission. So once you get established and your commission is rolling, the only negative is if the buyer all of a sudden drops your items, and I've had that happen. So you may be clocking along at 10 grand, 15,000 a month, and boom, if they whack your items, then you may make 2,000 a month. So you just have to protect yourself and be prepared for anything like that could happen.
Right. Do you have anything where if you reach a certain level, your commission starts going down? Like, is it easy? Once you get a larger, one of the examples that we've seen is like, you get a larger commission on the sell in because that took all the work, and then everything else replenishing afterwards, the percentage drops. Have you experienced anything like that?
I've never done one like that, but I know that they exist. Those are typically on the big commodity items, because you'll start making more than Bill Gates if you are making commission on some of the volume that Walmart does. So if you start making more money than your boss, they tend to get a little irritated. They don't like to see that.
Right.
But so it just depends, and that's very, very important to clearly understand what the compensation package looks like, so there are no surprises.
Okay, can you walk us through a little bit about how you were compensated at Walmart?
Yeah, with an MBA, I started out at $5.21 an hour, knowing I'd work my way up, which I did. So through the years, it's a steady climb. So one of the things that happened during my career is when I was a buyer, I was making, 50 grand, I guess. But during that time frame, that's when a lot of the scuttlebutt came about equal compensation based on your responsibility. And they had just put in the pay bands at that point in time. So when I moved from being a buyer into a district manager role, the minimum pay band was $85,000. So that was like a huge jump for me, which is very, very exciting.
Right.
So that was good, because before you may have, district managers making 60, some of them making 160. The disparity was huge. So that kind of level set everyone. So anyway, so the pay bands helped bring me up more rapidly than it would have had that not been in place. So I'm thankful for that. But you also, especially when you become an officer in the company, you get, your salary, 401k, profit sharing, bonus, deferred income. So it's pretty healthy package.
Okay, so did you do well if your department was doing well, or was it just
it's all holistic
salary?
Yeah, it's whole. So if the whole department did well, the whole company did well, and you met your goals, then everyone got compensated. But your compensation, your bonuses were based on your position.
Right. So do you feel like it's unfair if another buyer in the same category as you was not performing the level that you were, but yet your bonus was still the same?
Not really. Just because even if someone else is not performing, people at Walmart that don't perform don't typically get to hang around for that long.
Right.
Because it is a pressure cooker and you perform or you know,
Yeah.
yeah, typically. But the difference there is you can get different raises. For example, the typical raise is 2 to 3%, but if you're really performing, you can get up to 8%. Just depends on your performance. So they do a fairly decent job of recognizing and compensating people based on their individual performance, but it keeps everyone focused on the goal. To hit the sales goals. When you have a corporate goal and everyone hits it, and then everyone
Mm-hmm.
gets compensated.
Okay. Was there any other compensation methods like time off? Vacation time, is that nice? I mean, obviously now you don't have vacation time that you can use.
No vacation. When you work for yourself, you get no vacation. That's another non-perk. But yeah, I mean, the first year you get 0 vacation at Walmart, and then as you get your tenure, I think the maximum is 4 weeks.
Right.
So I never took all my vacation typically.
Right. And then profit sharing. Can you tell us about that a little bit? Was that something for officers within the company? Was that something that was company wide?
Yeah, it's company wide.
Okay.
But there are other perks for the executives in the company. For example, stock options, deferred income. So you do get higher levels of compensation,
Right.
the higher level of your responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
which that's great.
Okay. So, did you take a cut in pay when you changed jobs?
Yes, of course. You're getting your income, and then you start working for yourself. So you have to start and build up. So.
Okay. And how was that? I mean, did it?
It's stressful. But after that many years in the company, I had some cushion, so I could not, beat myself over the head every single day. I could take some time and evaluate the clients that I wanted to take on. And that is another thing that I would tell you was a big mistake on my part when I first left Walmart, and I had all these people calling me wanting help. Well, I probably gave away a lot more free information than I should have, trying to help them because that's what I do. But the information that I'm giving them comes from years of experience instead of stuff that you
That
think
has
everybody
value.
knows, but they really don't.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. So, looking back, was it worth it?
To leave?
Yes.
Yes. And I mean, I loved my time there and I wouldn't change a thing because of all the experience that I gained and the people that I met and all the things that I learned being exposed to so many different things in that company. Traveling international, I've been all over the world. So you can't trade that, But after punching in, I mean, I would work literally, I would be there at 6 o'clock every morning and I would leave at 5:30 no matter what, so I could get home to my babies and cook dinner and spend time with them. But it is a very tough grind I didn't have a wife, so I was a working mother. And that's a different set of pressures than it is when you can go home and somebody else is doing everything for you.
Right.
You still have to do a lot of things
Mm-hmm.
because you want to, but it's also difficult because the level of responsibility, it is a 24/7 job.
Okay. So, have you always been compensated fairly, like men versus women in the same position?
I feel like I was,
Right.
but I know that wasn't always the case.
So you've worked with people in the past that weren't compensated fairly.
I didn't typically talk to people about their compensation, but obviously from a lot of the things that everyone has seen in the news on compensation, there's a lot of validity to that.
Right.
I don't know that it was ever done intentionally,
Right.
but it happened.
Okay. Do you feel any pressure with as many straight commission deals as you have? Does the compensation affect the way you work, live?
Yeah, I mean, again, like my prior example of, if you're really not on top of what you're doing and have some backup plans that, if you're cruising along at 15 grand a month and boom, all of a sudden the buyer whacks your items and
Right.
you just have to be smart about it.
Right. And that's where the diversification of different items comes into play.
Correct.
Okay. So, you've talked a little bit about it, but have you had any straight commission deals that you've never received payment on?
Yes.
So,
Several, actually, and I can give you two examples. One was with a cleaning supply company. We had, they still owe us about $100,000 right now, but we had, the first initial order, the rollout, and all of that, and then they were like, "Oh, by the way, we're not going to pay you on net sales. We're going to pay you on net profit." So they changed the rules anyway. And another deal was with an import supplier that we were working with, and we had a pretty sweet commission deal. And by the time we expanded them into 2 other areas, the commission was going to be so large that the owner got very greedy and decided to let us go, even though we had like tripled his business, just because he didn't want to pay a hefty commission like that.
right.
So yeah, it can happen.
Okay, so have you ever seen people partake in any unethical tactics to increase their amount of compensation? Whether that be on your own, I mean, obviously we know you've seen that when you've been on your own, but what about your days at Walmart?
Not so much, not at Walmart really. But
Right.
I mean, I know there have been buyers that would take payment under the table from a supplier.
Right.
So that's happened, and the second that's found out, they are terminated, and that the supplier's blackballed for life. So
Right. And what about on your own? I mean, you were just telling us about the other companies, but those are two separate questions. What I was asking though is there any companies that you've worked with, how long have you worked with them, and then never got anything in to receive payment on?
never got anything in.
Yeah, you never sold any product, so you worked with Frühlenthaler for 3 years and haven't sold anything in. Is
Right.
there anything else? Is that, does that happen?
Oh yeah, it happens.
I mean, is this
It happens all the time.
right? So, I mean,
So yeah, that's why you have to evaluate how much time it's going to take and what the end payout's going to be.
so could you give us kind of a ballpark number? Let's say you represent, how many clients do you represent right now?
I'd say 7 or 8.
Okay, so out of those 7 or 8, how many did you have to weed through to get to those 7 or 8 that are solid?
I would say probably usually about 30% are
30.
solid.
30%
And the
are
rest
solid
of it
with,
are up and down, or they never happen at all. So it's just a gamble. Time is money. So it's if I'm willing to put the time in and hoping to get
right.
money.
So how long does it take before you cut ties with someone without making any money off of them?
It just depends. For example, this one guy, I mean, normally I wouldn't work for 3 years for free, but, knowing, that company grew their business without Walmart Business $100 million within the last 2 years, so they're doing something right. And they are someone that Walmart's going to have to take note of at some point.
Right.
Because it's Italian furniture, it's duty free, it's, more styling, better quality, etc. So it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. For example, this other supplier that I'm working with is doing clip strips. So the average retail is $1 to $4.
Right.
So unless you get some huge clip strip programs, it's. I'm really thinking I'm pretty stupid for even doing it. So I've got a meeting coming up in the next 2 weeks. If that doesn't pan out, it's over.
Right.
Yeah.
So you cut ties with them pretty much before anything even starts. If it's something that's not
Correct.
gonna happen.
Yeah.
Do you receive a lot of people reaching out to you that you're just like, man, this is crazy. There's
Yes.
no way. Can you give us an
Yes.
example?
Oh my gosh, it just happens all the time. this guy that has swim shoes. Okay, he's been pestering me for about 3 to 4 years wanting to get a swim. So he's selling everybody else and doing well, but Walmart won't give him the time of day. Why? I don't know. Because they have their own programs, and it has to be something so compelling, or a supplier or a brand that Walmart has lusted after, wants it, needs it, for them to make a change or add someone, because it is a real grind to get the supplier number, get them set up, have them understand how the whole process works, everything. It's a lot of work.
Have there ever been anyone that you turned down that ended up making it big?
Yes.
Who?
Yeah.
Or can you tell us?
Yeah, it was, it just irritates me every time I go in the store and see it. But this is just one example. But it was this cookie company on the commercial aisle that, not Fresh Bakery, that I worked with and hounded that buyer. I worked my tail off and helped them with the artwork, the placement, and blah, blah, blah. And the buyer would never give us the time of day. That buyer left. A new one came in. And by then I'd already been, throwing punches, trying to get his attention for a while. And I'm like, this is not going to happen. So I went in there and saw it on the side counter. And I'm like, congratulations to whoever got this in, because I tried, but, I failed. So, that happens.
Okay. So, have you ever felt pressure to partake in unethical tactics to increase your pay?
No. What could you do? No. On this side of the desk, where you're trying to sell something, I really can't think of any scenarios where that would come in play, but I wouldn't do it anyway, because I have to sleep at night and, feel good about what I do. And,
Okay, so you've talked a little bit about it, but have you ever been cheated out of money? There are still outstanding debts of companies you represented.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you feel about that? At any point, do you ever just write it off as a loss? Do you ever expect to,
No. You have to. Unless you're going to go after them and sue them.
Right.
So then you have to weigh, what kind of drain is this going to put on myself personally, just the emotional stress and the financial burden to go through trying to sue someone. Plus, if you, I really don't want to get the reputation of being litigious, okay?
Right.
That I'm going to go after suppliers, because this is a very small community and word gets around. Even though, because the suppliers that cheat people, the word gets around about them too. So at the end of the day, they lose anyway.
Right.
So.
Okay. Well, I think that's pretty much it. Is there anything else that you feel like needs to be added? Anything you'd like to share that I might have missed?
I don't think so. I guess my advice would be to, throughout your career, you need to network, and any introduction to someone inside the company or outside the company, you never know when your paths may cross again, or you may need their help or support. There's still people that I call on to help me or get advice from, or just to get the pulse of what's going on. People I've talked to for the last 30 years, 10 years, 5 years, whatever, it's important to maintain that network. And that's also how you get good referrals, and on my side of the business. So networking, and then also understanding the big picture on what your compensation needs are and how you're going to get it and maintain it. So you need a mix of several different compensation packages so that you can do that. Also, this year has been a little tougher for me. Next year is going to be phenomenal. It's going to be so much better. But I have a partner, which is my husband, and he does the same thing and does a lot of the analytics. So it's nice to be able to lean on someone when you need to pick up the slack, and hopefully I'll pick up more slack next year. So, it all works out in the end.
Right. Well, I think that's pretty much it. So, should be good.